Workers need to be prepared for potentially dangerous aspects of the job, and they need to know how to overcome them. Predictive analytics and pre-employment strength testing can make a big difference when it comes to safety in construction. Here to talk with me about it is Gary Glader, president of Horton Safety Consultants. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So Gary, let's talk about this. When we talk about the concept of predictive analytics used in safety, what does that really mean to the construction companies?
So for many years, safety people do safety observations and audits. Predictive analytics is the ability to take the information that we collect during those observations and audits and create a predictive modeling program.
When you look at that as a modeling program, is the idea ultimately to get more of a prescriptive result from that so that you can actually do something to prevent accidents in the future? Is that ultimately what we hope?
Absolutely. When you do safety observations and audits, many times you collect information that can be critical, but also at times collect information that is a little bit less than critical. What the predictive analytics platform allows you to do is to focus your limited resources on those hazards and issues that make the biggest difference.
Right now, we talk about this. There's so many accidents on the job site, and we don't want our workers to be hurt. One, it's costly. It results in delays. But we want our workers to go home to their families at night. And I talk about this a lot on the show. But what are we talking about? Are there ways to use these analytics to give them insights that most construction companies never realized by seeing these numbers, by seeing the data, so to speak?
Absolutely. Even just doing safety observations and audits is a huge deal, and not all contractors do that. But the bigger contractors who actually do safety observations and audits, they collect this data, they're able to use the predictive value of the information to focus on those biggest hazards.
So how do they integrate these predictive analytics that you're talking about into their processes?
So instead of using the blank sheet of paper approach or a checklist approach, the contractor would utilize, there's different predictive analytics programs. It usually installs on a portable device like a cell phone or a tablet. The information is collected in the field, but then it goes to a database where the predictive analytics algorithm actually makes the predictive values.
Are there companies out there that are providing this kind of tool, that software that helps them see these analytics right now? Are there a lot of them? Are there a few companies? What are we doing?
Handful of companies. We partnered with one in particular that's being used by many Fortune 100 companies.
And are they expensive? Can small companies use them? Are they really something that only the large companies are able to adapt to these?
Small companies could use them, but as a safety consulting firm, we've adopted the platform within our practice group so that when we go out and perform services of a safety consultant for the smaller contractors, we're collecting that predictive value in the data we collect.
So how long does it take to do this? Is this something it takes years to do? Are we months? I mean, how long does a construction company need to gather this type of information that you're talking about?
You do have to see enough job sites in order for the information to become valid. So the more inspections you do, the more people doing the inspections, the more legitimate the data becomes when you analyze it.
When you're analyzing this information and you're looking at it, does it really give you insights into seeing the kind of mistakes you're seeing at the job site that you say, okay, we're doing things wrong and now we've got to change the way we do things so that we can improve our processes in general? I mean, it's not necessarily people are deliberately making mistakes, because sometimes we see at job sites, people know they're supposed to do things a certain way, but now they're just not doing it. They're not continually, repeatedly doing the right things.
It focuses attention on the most critical issues. So when we make an observation, we identify the likelihood that something's going to happen and the severity of what could happen. And by focusing your attention on the most significant hazards that happen more often than others, you're able to prevent things from happening of a critical nature.
Does it bring up some legal issues that you have to be concerned about?
Well, certainly, if you collect data that demonstrates you have risk and you do nothing about it, you could be in some trouble.
Have you found some unique things over the years that you've done this, that you've brought the attention to some construction companies? Are there some examples that you can give that you say you've opened the eyes of some companies that said, wow, we really didn't know this was, you know, a real problem for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people generally tend to think in terms that their sites are very safe.
Of course, we all think that, right?
Right, exactly. So when this data becomes available and you show it to the owner of the company, it's eye-opening.
And that's interesting, because when we look at this, most construction companies think they're doing the right things. But are there times when they look at analytics, we all say it's hard to gather because sometimes data is overwhelming. But when you're collecting it, and we say, what is this information? And the question that I was asking is how long it takes. Again, is it months to gather? Are we talking, so a company looks at this and says, how long? What are we really talking about? That's the real critical aspect. Or we don't know because each company is different.
So we've been invested in this technology for about a year. We see many different types of contractors in our practice. So we are just about the point where we've collected enough data within a broad range of contractors to be able to make some valid perceptions, valid recommendations.
So when you collect it, can you make an assessment through the industry overall?
Yes.
So that's what you have. So you've gathered information, you assess companies. Do you assess them based on the size of them, based on a subcontractor, based on a GC, residential, commercial? Are there some projections or information that you can say, you know, looking out at the industry, that you can say this is something you need to do and these are changes the industry needs to make?
Absolutely, because when we code our system, we identify the type of subcontractor that they are. So we're able to develop industry insights. So when we take on a mechanical contractor as a new client, we have information stored in the system for other mechanical contractors, so their data becomes valid more quickly as we.
So you're constantly. So I understand this. You're constantly feeding the information in. Is
Yes.
what you're doing. It's not just one time. So the industry understands, and that's what I'm trying to get at. You're constantly feeding the data in to basically understand what the industry needs to do.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, Gary, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Gary Glader, he's the president of Horton Safety Consultants. Thank you so much for joining us today. And don't forget, we'd like you to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And that's our Safety Zone for today.